In Brooklyn, when we said the neighborhood's going downhill, we did not mean it literally.
Okay, take the next caller. Caller, you're live. Michael Martell, please present your question to Rabbi.
Hi, my name is Mike Martell from Minnesota. How are you guys? Thank you for having the show, and refuah shlema to your father, Rabbi.
Thank you.
My question is in Matthew 24:22, it states that one of the signs of the end times would be the shortening of days. And I was wondering if this was something that is also taught or told in Tanakh, and if not, what are the signs that the Mashiach will come in the end times according to Tanakh?
Matthew 24 contains what's called the Olivet Discourse. It has its corresponding, there are corresponding chapters that are not identical, Luke 21, Mark 13. But these are just, they're just very vague. There were people, thinkers, who lived just a couple of years ago, just said things that are very vague, and everyone thought these were prophecies. So, no, Tanakh is very clear of what would happen in the end of days. Very specifically, as a precursor to the coming of Mashiach, the children of Israel would be attacked. In fact, there would be what's called Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble is Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, where the Jews would endure the worst tribulation. It literally says that. There's no day like it. Umimena yivasheh, but from the great tribulation, the greatest tribulation, you will be delivered. There is Ezekiel 38 and 39, for example, where the prophet tells us about Mechemes Gog, a confederacy of nations that attack the Jewish people in the land of Israel over Jerusalem. Please see Zechariah 14. I know I frequently criticize, don't take it personally, but I sometimes come down on my viewers for not studying Tanakh enough. Zechariah is a more difficult book. It's not incredibly difficult, but it's not that easy. There are more difficult books in Tanakh than Zechariah. However, the easiest chapter to learn and understand is Zechariah 12. It's very, very easy. So the book of Zechariah begins with 8 visions. It's not that simple. It's not, nuclear physics, but it's not organic chemistry, but this chapter tells us clearly that before Mashiach comes, the Jewish people return to the land of Israel. Nations come to attack Eretz Yisrael over Yerushalayim, and God destroys them all. And then once the Jews are in Eretz Yisrael, and that God will destroy all the nations that come up against Jerusalem. What I want to show is, what I want to illustrate is a very specific prophecies that are highly falsifiable. They're very specific that at the end of days, before Mashiach comes, the Jews return to the land of Israel, and there's a state, and there's an army. And nations that surround Eretz Yisrael attack Eretz Yisrael, and Jerusalem will be a heavy, burdensome stone to all the nations that come against it. You understand? I'm trying to contrast this with, there'll be wars and rumors of wars. Very vague. You can apply it to, anything. Right now, according to the U.S. State Department, there are nearly 30 wars going on in the world today, okay? You are very familiar with at least 2 of them. Very familiar with them, because those 2 wars are in the headlines every day. But there are a lot of other wars going on that you're not familiar with, okay? So, and there were always wars and rumors of wars, and Tanakh doesn't use this vague stuff or anything, and earthquakes. Forget all that. Tanakh is very simple. Then what happens is, right before Mashiach comes, there is a tremendous trauma where the nation is attacked and people are killed. They turn to God because of the ones who are murdered, Vehibitu Elai et asher dakaru, and they will look to me because of the one or ones who were killed, pierced, and they will mourn over him like one mourns over firstborn son. That's called Mashiach ben Yosef. It has nothing to do with Mashiach, but it just means that right before the Messiah comes, there's going to be a tremendous trauma to the nation of Israel. Do I believe that's October 7th? I do. I'm not sure. I didn't hear voices. I didn't see visions, but that is, it's that kind of trauma which unites the nation into a national state of mourning. Okay? That's all. See, what I want to convey to you, what I'd like you to taste, is the nature of these prophecies. These are not these vague wars and rumors of wars and earthquake. What does that mean? Like, what earthquake? What? Right? I lived in Indonesia, okay? Indonesia is in the midst of the ring of fire. So Indonesia is one of the 14 countries that sits on the equator. It's hot. And many of the islands are absolutely gorgeous. Right? Like, it's never, ever cold. Like, cars in Indonesia, I just discovered this at some point living there. Actually, all they have is air conditioning. There's no heater. Because it just never, ever, 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 it never goes into the 60s, ever, never. It's like just hot and hotter. It's not insane. There are much hotter places because there's ocean, it's islands, so there's a breeze, but it's, how did we get into that conversation? I'm not sure. But the point is, Indonesia is a place that, because of where it's located, there are earthquakes frequently, and believe me, as a New Yorker, it's hard to tell from my British accent, but as a New Yorker, I could tell you, I was not acclimated to earthquakes. It was, I don't know if the word routine is the correct term. It just happened a lot, okay? In Brooklyn, when we said the neighborhood's going downhill, we did not mean it literally, okay? Indonesia has volcanoes, serious volcano issues. I mean, I can go into this, but it's a whole deal. Stuff goes down there, okay? So, Jerusalem, Eretz Israel, is on a fault line, okay? Just so like you have tectonic shifting of plates, off of Sumatra, which triggered a horrible tsunami back 20 years ago, horrible, where, 500,000 people were killed on December 26th. So this is, here in Israel, there is a potential for earthquakes, not so much in New Jersey, okay? So so I know you asked me about the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and so on. These are very vague things because if you're writing it and making it up, or you just, because you've seen natural disasters, you just say, well, there'll be natural disasters and wars and rumors of wars. And so that's very vague. And what I'd like to do instead of like being pedantic and just picking on little things, just say that in Tanakh, there's very specific prophecies. The Jews will be sent into exile. It will be a very long exile. Hosea chapter 3, verse 4 and 5. For many days, the children of Israel will be without a king, without sacrifices, without a temple, with none of that, none of those accoutrements until the end of days. Verse 5 of chapter 3 of Hosea. That's really very specific. When the Jews will return to the land and they'll serve God and David, which means Mashiach, their king. So that's really very specific. And what's very important for us is it is highly falsifiable. You understand? These are not claims which that are open to interpretation. They're very specific. When Jeremiah in chapter 29, verse 10 says that you're going to exile for 70 years, well, that's a very specific prophecy. It's highly falsifiable, right? Okay, so that's the difference between, days shorter, longer. Now, there are passages in Joel, of course, which use the examples of the celestial bodies, the moon, red. I don't think those should be taken literally at all. They can be. There's nothing wrong with it. This is not my view. But that's not what Tanakh is interested in. Tanakh is saying, look, here's the deal, boys and girls. If you follow me, the God of Israel, took you out of Egypt, you'll have what to eat. If you don't, if you turn away from me, this is what's going to happen. It's just going to stop raining. Here in Israel, it does not rain now during the summer. It never rains now, ever. I mean, I think I remember once in one summer there was like a sprinkling. It was headline news. It just doesn't. So you better get your rain during the winter. I mean, fall, essentially from October through, let's say, Passover. So if the Torah says, look, it's just going to stop raining, who would write that? Only God would, because only God controls the weather. Only God controls history in a way that you can measure. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is about. It's about prophecy. Why? It's not a magic show. It's not about poetry. It's about, I want to know who my Lord is. Who do you worship? Before whom do you bend your knee? To whom do you praise? The God of Israel. Thank you for your question. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחר